Good morning. Just let me check some stuff. Okay, we're good. Hi. Um, it's been a weird few days, hasn't it? It's it is very hard to not go in a bit. I'm going to try and stay on topic and show some restraint, but these things are all related to each other, right? So it's, you know, obviously when you're talking about like online regulation and tech and like the things that I'm talking about, they all intersect with each other. So, if I sort of wander off into a rant, which is 90% likely, given the fact that the last couple of, I've had a few falling outs and a few things, and I've been thinking about, um, like what the space should look like, what it does look like, um, all of that sort of stuff. I have had to, obviously I sit back and I observe, and I think I said in the last stream that I think that X has actually done pretty well. All the platforms have. I think when you understand sort of the volume of bollocks, the interests that sort of want to keep or suppress information, or put certain information forward or omit certain information. I think if there's one thing that I talk about, obviously there's a few things that I talk about, but, one of the, I think, pillars of what I talk about is sort of getting the sort of everyday user, sort of everyday person who's not in tech, who's not sort of in the weeds, right? I'm in the weeds. I find this stuff interesting. And even I find it like it's interesting, but it is still incredibly tedious and involved and resource intensive and boring. Okay. So what I do try to do is at least sort of walk it back a little bit and get you thinking about how like how you are, your eyeballs, your attention, you as a billboard, okay, you as a personal brand, and how you are a target and how making sure that you change your mind or keep your mind, there's a lot of different factors and different, sorry, I'm mincing my words because obviously it takes me a little bit to warm up. My coffee, my voice is a bit gravelly today. Hang on. There we go. Which is that when, if you've ever, like I did, I have tried to build tech product. I haven't had a successful tech product but I have actually reached a point where I've had to make the certain compromises and choices around these things. And I kind of, as I've watched these things unfold in the industry, I have seen that compromise, and I've seen that those who are willing to make certain compromises have sort of progressed, and those who haven't have sort of been left behind. But there's this built-in weird culture within tech where it's like, well, we only listen to those who succeeded, and we only listen to those who made the choices that sort of led us here, not the people who saw this coming and actually rejected that early and saw it early and made the choice not to, because then we're told that we're not supposed to be listened to because we didn't make a tech product. And it's like, well, no, that's not really how it works. Like, there's people who know stuff and have been trying to warn people for years about these problems. And but at the end of the day, like when there's a major global event, I think operationally you need to understand sort of what's involved with that. So you're talking, at the server, let's hear it for the AWS crew, right? The servers and the server guys and the server geeks and the, let's hear it for AWS and Google, because I think a lot of people are too fixated on these entities, these big companies, okay? And I'm going to sort of talk a little more about some of the antitrust stuff and some of the, regulatory things around tech. Again, it is very boring, but it is really important that you understand, because I think there's a lot of people who are invested in you targeting your anger towards the wrong targets and the wrong people. And so I just try to make sure that you have the information that you need to make an accurate decision. Now, if you make a different decision to the one that I would like you to make, then that's fine. But I've noticed that there is this ecosystem. Well, I haven't noticed it. I've been in it for some time, and I've made friends within it, and I, have observed it and taken notes and all of those sorts of things. I've been researching this sort of IDW pipeline for some time now. Okay, whatever, how's that for a 2017 word? But though that loose. Sorry about shaking the desk. I need a new. I'm using my phone, and I need a new rig for that holds the phone. Because this is my work desk, not the streaming desk. Anyway, so there's this whole ecosystem that's popped up, and I've sort of obviously cracked like a lot of the tactics that they use. But I also sort of, in the early days when I thought that they were legit, I actually advised them on how to do certain things and how to sort of work around algorithms and all that sort of stuff. But then I saw them sort of co-opt that and take that and abuse it and willfully ignore certain information. And that was where I started to see that this was all about sort of lie via omission, not necessarily, and obviously I've seen those people bounce, progress, show up on Joe Rogan spilling bullshit. And like, they know that they're spilling bullshit because they've been told that they're like lying, and they've been told that it's unethical, and they just ghost you. As soon as they ghost you, this has been like, it's funny. I actually said this on X this morning about how, don't you find it really odd that, because they're always the Daily Wire crew, the sort of right-wing ecosystem, right? I'm obviously generalizing there. I'm not okay, let me qualify what I'm saying. When I talk about the right-wing ecosystem, I'm not talking about your average online user who is in these communities, okay? They're actually the people that I am trying to help, okay? I'm talking about the people who make money, who build an audience, who knowingly deceive people, who knowingly omit information, who have been told time and time and time and time again that when they are, speaking to hundreds of, hundreds, thousands. I would say, I think everyone has a responsibility, because basically at the end of the day, when you've got micro influence campaigns, effectively the meaning of a micro influencer campaign is that, if everyone has a network, and, you have a responsibility to make sure that you're not, that you're not part of the problem. Okay. So when you're broadcasting, you have a responsibility to make sure that the information that you are giving is correct and accurate. And, and if it's not, or you don't know, most importantly, if you don't know, then you don't do that. You don't knowingly share that sort of stuff, right? And I think most people are decent. Most people, some are a bit fucking cooked now, where you're in this sort of Kafka-esque cycle of, you can't win, right? It's just a loop, where you're trying to help them, you're trying to give them information, and you say that you've researched this thing, but then when you say you've researched this thing, they will instantly dismiss you as a disinformation, as part of them that's fucking coming to get you, or that you're obviously on the take. It's like, honestly, you want me to open my books versus your books? Okay. I know that you're taking millions, a lot of money from like dark money and right-wing sources. I get a couple of $100 a month from a couple of patrons, and two of those patrons are the bulk of my money. Okay, for what I do. It would be nice if I had more, because the work that I'm doing is important. Because I do feel that I have, for those that do actually engage with what I'm doing, I've had feedback that I do make them pause. I do make them think. I do kind of pull them back. And, and the problem with this sort of propaganda war is that you're dealing with sort of sides in a culture war, where they're all using these same tactics, and no one will actually just honestly admit, like on the Democrat side, right, of this US culture wars. Like, again, let me define my terms. When I talk about the right-wing ecosystem, I'm being very precise. Okay, I am talking about Fox News, the Daily Wire, and then that sort of those peripheral sort of publications, those traditional conservative publications that are independent and sort of, on the teat of those sort of publications, so like you've got your, like these things are well researched. You can actually look it up. There's a book called Network Propaganda. I recommend, it's free to read. It's freely available to you, but we all know that, things that are freely available doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to look it up, but that's okay. I'm going to try. I'm going to keep trying. And I am going to, I'm obviously in the process of finishing up the website. And a big part of that will be that I'm going to start having show notes for these things. I'm going to start having links. So before I do the stream, I will have, a link, links to the resources. I may put some affiliate links in there, but I feel a bit skeevy about it. But, I've got to make some money somehow. I'm talking about people who make millions of dollars, okay, versus me with my couple of hundred. It's like, it's just asymmetrical, right? Speaking of asymmetry in the last few days. So, but you really do. You do see that asymmetrical warfare, sort of information warfare, happen a lot. And I think the last few days, if you've been paying attention to sort of that, that propaganda war, and you happen to be a normal human being, you'll see that asymmetry occur in terms of the way that the media falls into lockstep. Certain media publications fall into lockstep. People that you have been nice to or charitable to or, understanding of have suddenly flipped and are now just doing narrative work. Like, you've got to be conscious of that, and you've got to understand that, these things are not necessarily true, but you've also got to understand that there's no transparency around, first of all, who supports these podcasts. Okay, so we're looking at dark money and things like that. There's a lot of dark money in the media sphere. Okay, so a lot of, again, I'm not going to make claims that I don't have, like, but there, we know that there's certain organizations in the back end that are giving, podcasts to a lot of money to just pop up organically out of nowhere. And I happen to be helping one of those podcasts pop up out of nowhere suddenly. And, like, there's a reason why I don't work with them anymore, because I realized that they were on the take, right? And they had no integrity, because over time you start saying, like, you go through this stuff. And this is a big part of the journey where I say, like, you look at my old content, which again will be archived, and paywalled for the archives. Because a big part of that was sort of leaning into that ecosystem and sort of seeing where it led me. But they did actually catch me about, in 2017 over the gender stuff, right? Where I was like, this is a political cleavage. This seems like a perfectly normal thing. This seems like it's astroturf to shit. Why will nobody talk about the astroturfing? Why will no? This is obvious. Like, why will nobody listen to me when I say it's mostly bots? It's mostly fake followers. Like, why do you not understand? You have a media, and so, but because these IDW types were framing everything as a question, I think, and this is where my spurg comes out, and I sort of take the fact that someone asked a question, and Taya has the answer. So Taya, I'm the answer to the question nobody asked, like Lisa Simpson, right? I will always like try to help someone if I think that they are, confused. And so I saw this whole ecosystem of people that were asking questions, and I was like, okay, well, I'll help them. I know the answer to this, which is that it's obviously some sort of stealth, like dark money marketing campaign. It's there's all this sort of, fandom stuff and tribalism and, like it's obvious. Now over here, so you've got that internet, that's obvious, that's fake. Let's just park that. And they would just ignore that part. Okay. Is it because they don't understand? So then I spent like a year just trying to write and document and like create materials and educational materials around the funnel and how to do a disinformation. Like you've seen how I've tried to do that over the years, where I've tried to say, give me the worst idea and tell me how to sell it online and change hearts and minds, and I'll show you the playbook and how to do it. Okay. I've literally gone through that so many times. Okay. But I was sitting there going, like, I can tell you in detail what's going on. This is the answer, which is that most of this is fake traffic. Most of this is astroturfing. Okay. And I was like, okay, they're not in tech. Okay. Well, they're not in tech. Okay, all right, and you just go, okay, well, I'm used to people not being in tech. So I'm used to having to explain shit down, obvious things that are obvious to me, down to sort of that like basic level. Like that's normal, okay? But they're also content creators and in strategy. And I think, like the fellas that I'm going to show you today, like he didn't even sort of even understand what hosting was. Like, and he's sitting there, and then 3 months later, you see him making comments about the internet and how the internet is, and you're sitting there going, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Especially when they're on a podcast that also interviewed me, where I explained in detail what the internet was, but then she led with fucking some profound statement from this guy explaining the internet when I know he didn't even know how fucking hosting worked, like a couple of months before, or like to keep a secure password, or those sorts of things, right? And it's like, holy shit, like these guys are idiots when it comes to tech. But then you just see them like bang 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 up the chain, and you go, okay, what's going on here? Because I told them, and then they, like I did a quid pro quo with them and all that sort of stuff, right? So I helped them, did a consult. I also watched them lie and mislead their audience, red flag. So then I just slowly started to back away. Okay. And he started to, like I just went, no, because at the time I still assumed that most of the people in that ecosystem were honest, and that they were just us, they just were curious, and they just didn't know, because obviously these things operate in the gaps. They operate in blind spots. This is where these tactics are dangerous, and the problem that we need to solve. And it does link to the regulation of the podcast and how they're leaving stuff out on purpose, whipping people up into a frenzy, but they also happen to be doing that in an area that I know inside out, and they can go fuck themselves because I know that they're liars, right? Now, and this is again, it will come back to Joe Rogan and what the actual critique of Joe Rogan is. Okay, now they will frame it as he's right, and Russell Brand has played this as well. He is right wing now. Oh, it's like this big boogeyman. It's like, but he uses it as a shield to avoid all critique. I've not seen, but because he's a nice guy. Okay. Now, that's one thing that I've found that these guys do, is that they deflect all criticism and hide behind I was just asking questions. What are you picking on me for? And they never, it's like they use this sort of thing as a shield to avoid all all critique. Now, would I prefer you watch Joe Rogan over, say, or Glenn Greenwald or Russell Brand? Would I prefer that you watch those guys over Ben Shapiro or the Daily Wire or all of those guys, or Tim Pool? Would I prefer that? Yes. Okay. course, like that's I've said that before. Like, where do the curious go? And this is the responsibility of sort of left-wing media to get their shit together, for people, left-wing influencers, to stop like their purity bollocks and actually engage with what their concerns are and engage with the pain and have a human-centered idea, which is that there's people that are confused, okay, that don't know what's going on. They land right into this ecosystem of people that are asking the same questions as them. And then they are actually spoon feeding them cherry picked answers and taking them down a pipeline that is like, basically, at the end of the day, sits there. You watched it yesterday, where there's this narrative that the left are cheering on like Hamas's like attack, and it's like, well, that's not what happened. It didn't happen, and it's like, but you're obviously very conveniently on this, you always conveniently fall on the side of the right wing bullshit. And it takes, because you also then know that there's money, that they're bought and sold and all that sort of stuff. And again, this is not anything to do with people who watch these platforms. This is not anything to do with your average creator who gets, this is, you got to learn to compartmentalize things out, okay? Which is, I'm going to tell you my absolute substantive critique of people like Joe Rogan, which is that he knows better. And he hides behind the good guy thing, but he knows better and he needs to do better. And what he does is he puts these people on his podcast who are there to sell bullshit, and they exploit his blind spots. Okay, he might be a nice guy. Okay, and the problem is that because he's a nice guy, you end up being too charitable. You end up being too forgiving for too long. And unfortunately, because the critique of him, and this is that sort of left-wing ecosystem's problem, is that when you go too hard on people that are sympathetic victims in these culture wars, they will feel that knee-jerk need to defend Joe Rogan against you, and they stop listening to you and your ideas. And that is the problem, which is that you need to, you've got to accept the fact that someone who doesn't agree with you all the time isn't the devil or isn't evil, and like these campaigns. And so, I mean, I've been thinking for a very long time now that a large portion of this left wing fucking like shit that they show on TikTok is a fucking right wing psyop. Because it's like, this is just wholly detached from how I think the left are. And you've seen that play out in the last 48 hours, where this videos, this video just suddenly out of nowhere appeared. And it's like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you people? But anyway, this does link to, like, this whole ecosystem is designed for you to have to not, but again, the thing that fixes this is for you to learn how government works, learn how laws are made, click on things and read them before opening your fat gob, all of those things. Now, I feel like the horse is fucking bolted there. Okay, now I talked about that in the last stream about friction. Like, we have to put some friction back and force people to look and click and read the thing that they're sharing. That is a good thing. Okay, and I don't give a fuck if it annoys you. That's the point. It's supposed to. It's supposed to stop the frictionless sharing of bullshit, which is a big problem. Okay. There is a difference between having an opinion and talking about fact. There is a difference between an opinion and an informed opinion. And then there is a difference between having an opinion and sharing bullshit. And the thing is that then there's that nudge. Oh, well, even if I share bullshit, I didn't do it on purpose, but I'm a good guy. And it's like, I don't care. You're sharing bullshit. And this is about war. This is about people's livelihoods. This is about fucking vaccine. It's like, oh, fuck. It's one thing to share an opinion, but it's different from sharing a bad opinion. And then from there, it's like, I'm sharing a bad opinion, but I'm a good guy, so I'm off the hook. But then, see, I always assumed that he's sharing bad opinions, but he's a good guy, so he's off the hook. And that was where you go, oh, fuck, okay, how far? Okay, all right. So then I spent 2 years in persuade mode. You've seen it, where I'm like friends with them, trying to talk to them behind the scenes, giving them books, giving them articles. And of course, they're like, well, excuse me, called condescending because I suggested that maybe there's a book that was written 20 years ago that answers this rhetorical question they keep asking that has answers, but whips people into fear and a frenzy. They don't get it. And it's like, but you're a nice person. So what I will do, and I like you as a person, so what I will do is I will try to help you and I'll give you the information because I'm just going to assume that you're a good and curious person. And then I go, okay, benefit of the doubt, benefit of the doubt, benefit of the doubt, benefit of the doubt. Here's the answer. Here's the answer. Here's the answer. You saw that with Megan Murphy when I interviewed her. Her absolute fucking disdain for my saying that, like, a lot of this is bots, a lot of this is platform manipulation. She's obviously a target for that sort of thing. Because they shut down because they know what they're doing, and that is the thing. Okay. They hide behind the plausible deniability of it's just my opinion. I have the right to my opinion. But then when that opinion is a bad opinion, it's about their free speech. And then if it's a fucking bullshit, they go, oh, well, I didn't share the bullshit on purpose, so it's not my fault. And then these are all of the, not my fault. But then when you say, but I told you, they go, well, you're condescending, don't give me resources. And then you say, well, I think you're maybe doing this on purpose. And you go, well, I don't think you're a good person. You're lying. It's like you're doing this deliberately. You are either, so there's two choices when you are told that you are sharing something deliberately that you know is false to your audience. That either you're very stupid and you didn't know. There's two reasons why people would share, okay? You're stupid and you didn't know. You get a pass, especially if you're a nice person, yes. But if you're repeatedly stupid and repeatedly say the wrong thing and repeatedly repeat fucking, far right talking points and all that sort of stuff, okay, then, I'm going to have a word to you. But because I think you're a nice person, I'll invest the time and try to persuade you, okay? But then there comes a point where I see you repeatedly sharing it, repeatedly lying, repeatedly making the choice to take the money or shut up or, all those sorts of things. And I watch that occur. And then I come to a conclusion that you're actually not a good person. You just hoodwinked me into thinking that you were persuadable and that you are not a bought and sold propagandist and bad faith actor. And that's where I'm at with this ecosystem. Now, Joe's a good guy. I'm sure he is. But there comes a point where you are not a good guy when you actually see and know and observe what impact you have in the space. Okay? And it's like, I don't give a fuck. No one cares what Taya thinks about Joe Rogan, but I'm just putting it out there for the audience. Okay, that this is how they get you, which is that they hijack your charitability. It's that same thing with it's the same thing in the tech business where it's like, women in tech or whatever. It's like, if you just bend your little self a little more, if you're just a bit nicer, if you're just a little more charitable, if you just give us a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more, and then never return it. And this is the dead end of people like Joe Rogan's audience. Again, now, let me separate that. So you've got the comedians, the guests I'm talking about sort of political Joe Rogan where he talks to fucking losers and influencers and people like Tim Pool and Konstantin Kisin and, the trigonometry liars and, all that sort of stuff, right? I'm talking about that ecosystem, not necessarily. I mean, if you go on, it's a big audience. It's like he's a comedian. If you stick, that's fine. I'm not an idiot. I differentiate between those things. Obviously no one should turn down an audience like that. But I also know that audience is curated. Okay. And it's like, well, that audience, he knows what he's doing. He's not, he's okay. So he's either really dumb or lying. Now, everyone's pretty charitable thinking that he's just really dumb, but I'm starting to think that he knows what the fuck he's doing. And it's just like, there comes a point where you go, you've been told enough times in so many different ways that you have to know. You have to know what you're doing. And this is where it's like, okay, so this does link back to the Canada bill, which, is, again, they don't declare their fucking, conflict of interest ever because, God forbid, that you would actually declare that you stand to benefit from persuading your audience of this, that regulation is bad. But basically all the law's doing is saying, Joe Rogan, you're a broadcaster. Not even Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan himself isn't even covered as part of the bill. That's the thing. That's what's really fucking weird anyway. Because again, they play on your ignorance. They just read a headline, repeat the headline in front of how many million people. And then they go, oh, and then they cop out because they go, well, we're nice guys. They're not nice guys. They're liars and they are assholes. And I have, I've had interactions where I've been actually pretty horribly treated by these guys. Masks slipped with that man where he became quite abusive. So, like they're not nice guys. So they don't get, the trigonometry guys don't get the nice guy card for me. They're not nice. They're liars and they are malicious. Okay. And they are funded behind the scenes and they are upset that there's a little bit of scrutiny. Okay. First up. Second of all, Joe, nice guy in a bubble. Okay. Has his worldview. It's not about your rights to an opinion. We're past that. It's about the impact that you have on other people. Okay. And it's other people's right to have good information from people who are in the media. Okay. So, now, it's just such a disingenuous misrepresentation, and it's not a coincidence that the people who look at who's opposing the regulation of podcasts are the people who are either sucking Joe Rogan's dick or just willfully repeating like something that they've read. Again, I've said this before. I'm like Bristol stool chart for online media. I know exactly what media you're consuming by the shit that comes out. Right? It's insane. But there does come a point where I've stopped being patient and nice with these people because I have seen this. I've seen the direct impact of their behavior. I have seen, again, another person that I have recently just gone, fuck it, I'm done with you, was, someone who's just suddenly jumped on this turf train, asking the same questions that were being asked in 2017. The answers are there. I gave her the answers, but she's just pandering and running with it and running with it and running with it because she wants the clicks. And I said, fuck it, I'm done with you. Here's a book. Oh, but you're condescending, aren't you? You're condescending. No, I'm not. I'm trying to fucking, it's like, no, I'm done with you. You're lying to your audience and I won't have a part in it. Especially when you flip and start supporting Israel. Go fuck yourself. And that's really the end game here. They start this, and she's someone who's particularly stupid on the anti-China rhetoric as well. She's just fully hook line it. I'll put that one in the dumb camp, I think. But again, I've thought, okay, are you is she a nice person but stupid, or have I been duped by a con? Like you sit there and you go, I'm not sure, and there comes a point where you have to go, okay, well, I've been duped by a con, and I go, okay, well, I'll just tell everyone else. It's my job to educate users about who they can and cannot trust. Now, I don't like that. I don't try not to do the drama thing, but I'm telling you that these people are liars. And it's just like, okay, so there's this thing. Let me just fucking put this on. I hate looking at these stupid faces, but whatever. Let's just, I'm so sick of this shit. Couple of $100 a month against millions of dollars a month, and they can't even fucking look it up before they open their big fat fucking mouths. Now, I know that but what they do is they qualify it. They always qualify it, right? Which is with, oh yeah, I should fact check this. Yes, you should, before you speak to millions of people. Yes. But I also know that if they did fact check it, they would ignore it and cherry pick the stuff that didn't fit their narrative. Seen that before. I'm telling you that it's an out for them. They have no interest in telling the truth. They have an interest in omitting the parts that are like inconvenient to them and between them and their fucking wallet.
Experience.
They're regulating podcasts in Canada.
Oh yeah, and
I
was reading about this bill. Because I woke up and
He
we're jet lagged, so
it.
I woke up at a ridiculous time. I went on the phone, which you should never do. Let's be honest, that is a bad way to start the day.
It's not good.
No. And then I was reading about what they're doing. It's terrifying. So they want to bring in this bill whereby they regulate.
Okay, it's terrifying. So just so you know, this bill has been in the works for years. It has gone through several rounds of consultation. Everyone has had a chance to write submissions. Netflix, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Meta, Twitter, they all did submissions to this consultation process, as did citizens. They've had the reading of the bill. They've negotiated the bill. The bill got put on hold because there was a change of government. There was an election on. That government was then re-elected again, at which, again, when democracy functions, that implies that there is a mandate and that government has the right to, pass legislation. It then went through as a new bill that went through a new consultation process and a discussion paper. And it's like, and basically the consensus is that this needed to happen. It's a review of the Broadcast Act that basically just says big internet companies are also broadcasters. That's it. It gives it's the same thing with this fucking thing as the online safety bill, which is just, it's updating the law and you're just turning it into terrifying. You have to fill in a form. That says, I have a podcast. And also, it's worth mentioning that the government has said they do not know of a single podcast that actually meets that threshold. And the reason that they're asking for the registration is to gather that information. It is top level information. It has got nothing. The rest is your fucking brainworms. And the fact that you don't want any accountability for your content because you're a liar and a grifter. And America has this fucking terrible thing called televangelism, where it hides in the shadows, it exploits vulnerable people, and there's a reason you love Texas. There is a reason you love America, because you're a televangelist who hurts vulnerable people, and the rest of the world don't fucking agree with that. So move to America and ruin them. But just fuck me. Stop acting like this is some draconian authoritarian fucking state. Constantine was going off about Australia having fallen. Fuck off. You don't know shit. Oh, but I was in Russia. No, that's called standpoint estimate. If I thought you hated the fact that feelings and facts don't like, what is it? Facts don't care about your feelings. And the personal perspective did. It's funny how selective you are in the face of facts rather than personal anecdote when it's not you or it's you. Shut up. You don't know what authoritarianism is. You're a paid shill who does fucking Epoch Times, fucking all that right-wing talking points. And you are on the take and you are lying to your audience, and I know it. Anyway, they won't see this, and if they do, fuck them. I'm right. So, but anyway, so this, what was I going to say? Yeah, it's terrifying. Imagine being, like, I have ADHD, right? I'm pretty afraid of fucking forms and admin. I'm allergic to admin. But, I mean, you're afraid of a fucking form. Would you rather, would you rather that they just say, what do you want? What do you want? Okay. What if they approached Apple and just said, okay, we want to, you see, this is where you can't win. They're trying to get the information, okay? What exists in the ecosystem? At the moment, there are no podcasts that actually currently earn that kind of money. Now, what we want to do is make sure that we haven't missed anything. We haven't missed any any unintended consequences of the policy. This is just the policy process. And this is a completely retarded, absolutely stupid understanding that just because you don't like Trudeau and you have brainworms, that you think that all of the government is somehow out to get you. And it's like, no, these are separate processes, separate things. This bill, it has its problems, but those things are fluid and moving. Again, Mr. Law expert, politics expert, maybe you should have fewer discussions with idiots like James Lindsay and actually read how the law works at the kindergarten level, which is that this law just gives them the ability to scrutinise the ecosystem and create a slightly fairer playing field between, broadcast media, and it's mostly aimed at broadcast media. They've explicitly excluded like user-generated content for the most part. Okay, again, there's quibbles over it and there's uncertainties, but your uncertainties are not conclusions. They are gaps, and there is a process for that, which is the consultation process, the elections, all of the consulting the experts. But of course, the experts are all in on it. They're all in on it And they're all biased and they all just want to censor things they don't like. No, you're full of shit. You should be regulated because you are a liar sitting there with a fucking cigar talking bollocks that you know nothing about. And of course, he mentions the Canadian truckers because, you know, that's how it operates.
Podcast. So what they want to do is every podcast streamer or whatever it is platform that makes more than $10 million revenue, not profit, revenue.
$10 million revenue in Canada.
Has to register with the Canadian government.
They have to fill out a quick form that says, what's your podcast? What's it about? We're trying to gather information about the landscape, and this is around broadcast licenses and what the ecosystem is. Also, we want to put some scrutiny on the funding sources, and we want to, oh wow, why on earth would these guys have a problem with opening up their books? Why would that be? Now, do I have concerns? Yes. Okay. There's always concerns. But to validate those concerns would mean throwing out the entire judicial system, the entire consultation and policy process. You'd have to have the entire bureaucracy against you. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Do you think that Justin Trudeau just sits there and just writes laws down and says, we should, like, you have no intelligence. You have no brains. Okay? It's just like, shut up about the law.
They then want them to hand over information about their content and the people listening.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a concern. Okay? Now, again, I'll admit that, but again, the details, devil's in the details with that. And a lot of that is more, okay, where's your audience? So what they're trying to do, again, if they were good faith actors, they would actually just, you know, not just pander to this bullshit. And Joe Rogan if he has reliable legal advice, they would say this is a nothing burger. The reason that they're asking for this, okay, is because they need to understand how much of the audience is in Canada and how much it's affected. They're actually just in information gathering for regulatory decisions. There is no it's just a form. It's just fuck. They're trying to assess the situation and figure out what the next step is. This bill only gives fucking, you know, the ability for the, sorry, I can't remember what the body is, but, you know, the power to regulate the internet alongside the same way that it does with like TV broadcasting and all, you know, all that stuff. And it's like and it only affects very large broadcasts. It mostly doesn't affect people who are uploading podcasts at all. Okay, so it doesn't affect social media content. It is such a lie. And Joe knows better. He's not, and this is the thing. This is the problem with this. Again, this is my actual office. Okay, this is my actual, but there's a lot of optics and, you know, smoke and mirrors with streamers where they try to make it look like this. Okay, so you think that's, you know, like this is not like, you think that everyone who is sitting in front of this little organic like space is a person in their backyard, okay? But some of them have like full on studios and they kit them out to look that way. Joe Rogan is one of those people, okay? He has staff, he has lawyers, he has financial advisors, he has a manager, he has an agent, he has a booking person, he has all of these things. And he misrepresents the fact that he makes it sound like, but he makes it look like him and I are equal when he is a multimillionaire. He is not just sitting in his basement, he has staff, okay? He has an empire. He has a broadcasting business. And there is a legal definition of broadcasting, which is that you are setting up a broadcasting company that is designed to educate, inform, you know, entertain the public as your primary business. There's a massive threshold. We're talking about broadcasting, not narrowcasting or social media or anything like that. Nobody is coming after podcasts. But if they are earning over $10 million in Canada a year, first of all, they want to be able to look at, you know, bringing it into line in terms of whether local content's available. And that's a good thing. in this fucking American wasteland, culture wars, horseshit fucking landscape that we live in, where people just talk bollocks 24/7. Local content, okay? They're just trying to assess that. So how much of your audience is Canadian, okay? So that whether this applies to you. And also, if you're not disclosing your funding sources, we'd like to know where your money's coming from. Why did you pop out of nowhere suddenly in 2 years? How did that happen? What was going on there? Do you think maybe there's some dark money or fraud where you are paid to say things like this? Because, you know, like it's like that's what this is about. It's not surveillance. It's not this fucking again, you have this again, they take valid concerns, tiny valid concerns, quibbles. Most legal experts, most people who are in this are like oh, it's a little over far reaching and all that sort of stuff. Now, in the context of something like the Trudeau government, where let's just say that, you know, calling everyone Nazis, or some of them are, calling everyone Nazis is probably not a good idea. Debanking people, probably not a good idea. Mistreating, like, you know, the truckers who were, you know, for freedom of protest and all those sorts of things. But, you know, that was that was an overreach, okay? Celebrating Nazis in Parliament, not the best of judgment, right? But there's checks and balances there. And again, this is that thing where they go, well, do you understand how this system works at all? That there's actually, you know, it balances out for the most part. Okay. It just takes time, and you can't, and it's too hard. You got to read stuff. Okay. Even if there's a bad statute, guess what? The courts are there. If there is you know, like a lot of the way politics works is they'll pass a statute, or they'll pass a law to, you know, but when you're interpreting that statute, the context of when it was passed, you know, the first and second reading, all those sorts of things, though, to the context of that were taken to interpret the law and apply the law alongside its intent. Also, I think, don't quote me on this but I believe this is the same. Again, I'm not versed in Canadian law, but we are like a common law system. So we have that sort of very similar approach, right? Which is that, but also I think that Canada and Australia, I know Australia does it, but Canada, when you pass a statute, you have to do a statement of compatibility with human rights. So if they're saying all of this stuff, why don't you look to see if there is a compatibility statement? There's no, like, where it says there's no, you know, where they've actually addressed the concerns about human rights. That's actually part of the process. Before it gets ratified, you have to have your statement. Oh, yeah, but let's ignore that part. It's our right. It's against our rights. It's like, but have you read the thing that no, of course they haven't. Of course they haven't read it. They just talk shit. But they're a nice guy. So they're off the hook. They're off the hook. They don't read. They can't be bothered. They won't listen. They are uncoachable. They are reaching millions of people. They are lying. They are dangerous. And oh my God, but he's a nice guy. So they're untouchable. And then people like me turn around and go, well, okay, you obviously haven't tried hard enough. Let's just keep trying to persuade them. Let's just help them. Let's persuade them. Let's persuade them. They're not going to listen. Their job is to lie. They are paid to lie. And unfortunately, again, Joe Rogan sits in this, I'm too charitable, but it's because, again, he does provide, like I said, would I prefer you watch Joe Rogan, as long as it's not these fuckheads, over, you know, the worst content like the Daily Wire? Of course, right? Of course I would. But, you know, and do I think, like I've said before, I think Russell Brand in the right setting, not so much now, but, you know, in the right setting, he probably de-radicalizes people. But this is on people on like the left, political left, or the grown-ups in the room, to be more engaging, to do content that actually fucking makes sense, to talk about the truth. But unfortunately, the truth doesn't matter, because you're up against the people that are willing to lie. You're up against the people that pay a fortune for them to lie, and they've got no integrity or anything. Anyway, so.
right, to their
Oh my God.
to the government.
Imagine
Trudeau.
getting a hold of Alex Jones's email list.
Probably a bunch of senators on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, imagine.
Yeah, okay. So that happened. How are those things related to each other? Over here, you've got broadcast licenses and regulatory stuff. Over here, you've got okay. So it's just one person sitting on a crate writing notes. Is that how you think the government works? Given that this bill has been going since what was it 2019, 2018? It was started out as Bill C10. Okay, ironing out the kinks, consultation process, every expert consulted, plenty of opportunities for people to write objections, multiple hearings, multiple meetings, first, second, third reading, Senate, first, second, third reading, assent, but you still, how much more democracy do you need? Sorry, it hasn't had the Joe Rogan's conflict of interest stamp of approval. Therefore, it's authoritarian because I don't know what the process is and I refuse to learn what the process is. And also, I'm on the take from people who want you to not know what the process is. So what we'll do is we'll just say that there's this crazy law that's unrelated to this other thing, which is completely authoritarian, even though it is literally the most transparent process that you could ever see. Okay, now, were there issues around time for debate that was given, those sorts of shady things? Yes, of course. That's going to happen. That's politics. What do you think politics is, you fucking dipshit? Do you think politics is sitting in a fucking a comfortable chair asking questions of people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about? That's what your idea of politics is, because you have never actually done anything. You don't have a degree, you haven't studied it, you haven't done anything. It's very easy to just mouth off about shit that you know nothing about.
Yeah.
And then
The government can get that.
they're talking right now about, and maybe we're going to need to fact check this again because I was reading it this morning, but basically
Oh,
they
really?
want
Okay.
it to promote Canadian...
And don't share it!
something to do with basically what Canadian greatness, whatever it is, they talk about it, and Indigenous affairs. And you're like, oh, so they're going to say a number of things are un-Canadian.
That is not true. This is the same thing. So basically it is to make Amazon, Netflix, anyone who runs broadcasting, and also, make broadcast media, traditional broadcast media who are currently under who have conditions attached to their broadcast licenses. It brings these other people in line with the ability to put conditions on that. So of course, Rebel News are going to have an issue with it because Rebel News spout garbage. And there's no transparency around their funding, okay? But what the local content thing is that it requires every TV station or broadcast station, they have to have a certain percentage of local Canadian content. That's a thing here as well. We have to have local content. What this does is that the internet has existed as sort of somewhat of a loophole for traditional broadcasters to only talk about not to have Canadian content on their YouTube channels and various other places like that, but also Netflix and Amazon. It is heavily dominated by bollocks American content. And what this does is just brings them all into line so that they're all having to abide by the same rules. They're not regulating podcasts. But they're actually just asking podcasts to register if they meet those criteria so that they can consult and figure out how to work with them too, because they need that transparency around what dark money and funding. You need to be adhering to some sort of ethical standards, because you can't be obviously trusted to self-police, obviously, because you're full of shit. And it's like, well, what do you want? It's not terrifying. It's fucking common sense. And if you had 2 seconds and knew anything about what the fuck you were talking about anything, but send your bros. Go on. You mean your bots and shit. Go on then.
And then you can just silence them. Look what Trudeau did with the truckers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
We just had one of their guys on to talk about it.
Not just the truckers, but people who
True.
donated to the
Sort
truckers
of.
got their bank accounts closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is wild.
Yeah.
You got locked out of all of your money because you donated to a cause where you didn't think
But
that
they
people
leave
should have to
details
take
out.
an experimental
They
vaccine
leave details
in order to
out.
be able to work to drive a truck.
But
Always.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
talk about
You
the
think that's
truckers.
okay? Like, that's so not okay. The
Again,
fact
it's to
that
try and
those people
track
aren't
dark
up in
money.
arms.
And
The whole
dodgy
country
right-wing
didn't
cash,
freak
far
out
right-wing
and
cash that is
demand
being funneled through legitimate sources.
a fucking change.
It's money
Like,
laundering.
You can't have that's dictatorship stuff. That's
Right.
what that is. It's banana republic stuff.
We do these calls with
Banana
our top
Republic.
supporters, and we have some in
They just
Canada.
say these words. They don't know what the words mean.
And we have this
And
lady.
they know that their audience won't bother to look up what the words mean. Do you know how many times I've been saying just Google this term and it says the literal opposite to what these people are saying? It is so insulting to someone who actually has spent years training in these fields and working in these fields that I have to reduce myself so much to having to defend myself against idiots who won't even look stuff up.
Been supporting us for years, and she's always fine. And in the middle of this thing, she was like, "I'm terrified. I'm not going to be able to eat because they're going to shut down my bank account."
God.
Right? In Canada.
It's so crazy that they think they could do that if people disagree with them. Because that's all they're doing. They're just disagreeing. And they're
They're
supporting
just disagreeing.
a
Yeah,
protest.
that's
It
exactly.
should
Yep.
be-
So
and
you
it
just
was a
disagree.
peaceful
Say, I'm
protest.
a nice
Those people
guy.
did it the right way. They just
I'm a
parked their
nice
trucks
guy.
and
Everything I
they didn't
say,
block
I didn't
roads
mean
off.
it.
They didn't do anything fucked up.
but
It couldn't
if you
possibly
frame-
be it couldn't possibly be more complicated at all. I'm not going to read about it. I'm not going to check into it. I'm not going to look into it. I'm not going to learn how the process works. I'm going to learn absolutely nothing, but, they're just disagreeing. They're just asking questions. Shouldn't they be allowed to say whatever they want without any consequences? Of course. It's America. Also, fuck televangelisms. Televangelism is free speech. Doesn't matter that they're preying on the vulnerable or robbing them blind or exploiting people, or that the highest number of cults actually come out of your free speech paradise. Fucking dickhead.
frame it that these people, which is how they were being framed as racist far right. Well, look,
Yeah.
you're giving money to a far right racist organization. You're encouraging hate. Well,
Yeah.
the government has to step in. We have.
You're
to step
encouraging
in. We need
hate!
to freeze everything because we need to make everything safe.
What was his most recent apology because they accidentally awarded a Nazi?
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
If
think
they made
so. I
everything
think-
safe, your income stream would very quickly disappear. Because you incite fucking...
Zelensky was visiting the
your
Canadian
strategy.
Parliament, and they got some guy who was a Ukrainian, inverted commas, war veteran. Turned out he fought for the bad guys.
Yeah, so
in
it's
that one.
unrelated.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't think
How are
like
they related to
Zelensky
each
or
other?
I don't know.
Probably
If he,
didn't know.
Yeah, he didn't know.
Oh, yeah, because
so
Trudeau's just one guy. He just gets up in the morning and goes, I'm going to censor the internet, and then I'm also going to go and deliberately there's 5-year-old understanding of how government works. It's like, God, these things are siloed. They work independent of each other. Regulation is not related. They're not related. Trudeau is not the fucking minister of everything. The minister initiates over there, and the fucking government what is it called? The department over there, and they work. What do you think? Do you think that he just sits there and writes a fucking to-do list every day? How to authoritarian in crayon. No, that's how you think the laws work. Fucking idiots.
Imagine you're sitting in Parliament and everyone's like, "Hey, let's stand up and give a round of applause for this war veteran." You're like, and then it turns out you're applauding a Nazi.
How old is this dude?
Old. Like,
Yeah.
He
old.
probably doesn't.
Anyway, I've had enough of these fuckheads. So, again, this whole thing where it's like, oh, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. Yeah, he's also a dickhead. Joe Rogan, I mean. The other guy is a liar and they're liars. Because I know them particularly and personally, and I don't know them anymore, but I worked with them for a bit, and they're dishonest actors. Dave Rubin is his personal hero. He wants to mimic Dave Rubin. That's all you need to know. Then again, there's people who think Dave Rubin is smart. But anyway. But that was the words that came out of his mouth. His strategy is to copy Dave Rubin, which is to parrot whatever the right wing wants and take their fucking cash. And he's done that. Okay. He said his goal was to be the UK Dave Rubin. Okay. Just so you know. It's pretty accurate because Dave Rubin's a fucking idiot too. But anyway, great thinkers. He's writ a book. He wrote a book. He wrote words down. He knows more than somebody, well, knows more than me about everything. He knows how the laws work. Justin Trudeau just sits with his crayon and just, thinks about what laws he's going to pass today because that's how the process works. It's not like there was an election in between two bills that were pretty much identical and there was a whole consultative process and, no, it's authoritarian rules. Authoritarian rule. This crazy law that I didn't know existed, didn't know how it works, don't know the details of, actually don't understand. But I did read it in Valuetainment this morning. But suddenly that's authoritarian. My knee-jerk reaction is that this is authoritarian, even though it's been like a 6-7 year process and every legal scholar and, everyone who actually knows anything actually goes, yeah, it's got some problems. I've got some concerns, but, we'll make sure that we're refining it. The podcast registration process is just information gathering. We're trying to get a sense of the landscape. We would prefer to not have to backdoor it with tech companies because you're mad about that too. Why don't you self-report? Because if we went to Apple and said, give us a list of the fucking listeners and broadcasts, Apple would go, nah, fuck them. Or also, there'd be privacy implications between data sharing and all that sort of stuff. Again, yes. Concerns, quibbles. What's your solution? There's no solution and you're still just be honest. You want to lie for money. You want to misrepresent and cherry pick everything. And regulation is coming for you fucks thick and fast. And you're gonna have to find new ways of laundering this fucking money that you're using to recruit people to your bullshit politics. You're losing. It's catching up with you. I've said this. This shit is just catching up with you and you know it. And it's a decade too late, if I'm honest with you. Because a lot of us saw it coming. And I talked about that at the beginning of the stream, which is that there are people who saw this coming and said no to the money. They said no to the VCs because they wouldn't do this because they saw what was coming. We didn't want to be compromised because we had ethics. We saw the people without ethics get funded and supported because we knew that this was coming. Because there's things we wouldn't do for money. And so, ergo, here we go. Speaking of conclusions from the gaps, here's a much smaller gap than accidental Nazi in Parliament, which was funny. And regulation of the reform of the Broadcast Act that hasn't been revised since 1991 and needs to incorporate large broadcast platforms in like YouTube and stuff because the landscape has changed and they needed information on the landscape. If you're going to create a big gap like that and then build a fucking narrative around it, do you know what I'm going to build a narrative around? Around the fact that you get paid a lot of money telling lies. You won't listen to anyone who thinks you're a good person. You are cynical. You willfully lie to your audience and misrepresent things. You profit from hate. You know what you're doing, and it's closing in on you. And it's not a leap. It's a leap that's 1/10 of the leaps that you're making here. It's coming for you. Get some savings together. I don't know what to tell you, but it's going to put some scrutiny on the shit that we all know is happening, and you have an interest in making sure that doesn't happen. And if you watch these guys, stop giving them money, okay? If you watch these guys, I don't know what to tell you at this point, but anyway, who cares? Everything I said is true. Come at me. I love you. Thanks for watching. They're lying. Now, again, just what they leave out. You could literally just Google myths, like on the Online Safety Act. Is it? No, that's not Online Streaming Act in Canada, and look at the Wikipedia page for it, the history. Most people, it's not a problem. There's nothing. It's benign. And it also literally is just, but then they go, oh no, the right wing have blown this out of proportion. Oh yeah, they would say that because they think we're all right wing. You are. That's a fact. You're right wing. Stop providing cover for this stuff. I'm done. Okay, I said this morning. The only reason that I fight censorship is because I know that it affects like people like me more than people who actually do speak the truth to people like you more than it affects you. You're okay. If I had my way, you'd be like dealt with swiftly. And oh no, it's the gulag. No, you would be you would not be allowed to operate as a business if I had my way. The only reason that I don't push for that is because I know that it disproportionately affects protests. But you hide behind these Canadian. You don't give a fuck about the Canadian truckers unless it suits you. You're hiding behind them because you're dark money sources. People like me are actually fighting for them. And then you co-opt all these lefties into fucking fascism cynically and then call people like me authoritarian. Go fuck yourselves. Defending a democratic consultative process that needs to happen, that somehow no one ever declares that they stand to lose money or need some or get some scrutiny. I have no vested interest in this. Okay. I don't, the bill doesn't affect me in any way personally, but because the podcasters aren't covered. Okay. And I tell the truth and I do the right thing and I'm genuine. You have a lot to lose. So, well, why are you lying for? Anyway, I'm going to go. Love you. I will be back on Friday talking about why I'm voting yes. Okay. Take care. Bye.